Hey everyone, this is Daniel,
And I'm June.
and we are
Korean
American.
What was that?
I didn't plan to do it, but I was just in the moment. I was
really?
I want to say Korean too because, I think after this podcast, June, and 3 years of dissecting Korean American culture and 5 years of living here, I feel a little bit more Korean than I did before.
A little bit more?
Just a little bit. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm always curious, like, how Korean have you become?
It's a hard question, but if I was a 7.5 on the Korean American scale before, again, 1 being Korean, and then 10 being American, I had rated myself as a 7.5 before. Maybe I'm like a 6.5.
Oh,
Maybe
1 to
know.
0.5.
Yeah.
That's a big shift.
I don't think I'm ever, we had a previous guest who described themselves as a 5. I'm never going to get there. I think I would have to live a lot longer in Korea and maybe learn the language much better. But I don't think I'll ever get there. But yeah, I think I've maybe gone down a half point or 1 point.
In a weird way, do you know, like, there are like these very small moments where I feel like you're very Korean?
Yeah.
Or these moments, like, for instance, when we're at a cafe, right? And then they ask you, 영수증 드릴까요?
Yeah.
And you're like very in a dismissive way.
아니요.
아니요. That is very Korean to me.
Yeah. I do think I can trick people at restaurants now when I order, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, June, the time has come. This will be our final planned episode. And June, I thought I would use this episode as a chance to just brain dump everything in my mind that I've been processing and thinking about as we're preparing to leave. So yeah, I took some notes and wrote some things down. Basically, things I'll miss about Korea, things I won't miss, things I have mixed feelings about. Of course, a lot of emotions and reflections on my time here. But yeah, that's what I was hoping to do. So how does that sound?
Yeah. I think at one point you had an idea of having the previous episode as the final episode. But I thought that this fit in better considering the overall theme of the podcast.
Yeah.
Because the theme of the podcast is to bridge between different cultures and build more empathy.
Yeah.
Right? And I think your transition and the learnings that you learned throughout the past years is a grander theme than the podcast.
Okay.
So I think
I like that.
fits in very well.
Yeah, I mean, let's see how it goes. A lot of my reflections are not going to be super deep. I don't know why. I think I had this vision of like 101 things I'll miss about Korea, stack ranked, right? And it would start very...
That is very shallow.
Well, it will start very shallow, but it'll get super deep at the end. And the number one thing I would miss, June, is this podcast and you, and then I'd cry. But no, I think let's just see how it goes.
Okay.
So the first section I have, June, things I'll miss about Korea, everyday infrastructure and kind of systems, how things work. Top of the list is going to be the public transportation. Yeah, I think the subways and buses are clean and reliable and affordable. And even taxis, I don't know how you feel as a Korean living here, but I don't feel guilty or bad taking taxis in Korea. It's quite affordable.
It is.
Especially compared to the US, compared to Japan, and I was in Sweden recently. Man, Korean taxis are really a good deal.
Yeah.
And so I don't even feel bad about taking taxis. And so kind of add on to this is because the public transportation is so good, I just walk everywhere. I'm walking all the time. And because there's so many things to do in my neighborhood, I can just walk to restaurants, just walk. And I really, really like that. Yeah, I've always appreciated that even before living here, but here it's just so everything's so accessible, walking and public transportation. So yeah, I will miss that desperately.
Is there also a part of you that is excited to drive in the US? Because driving is easier, right? Definitely.
Definitely, it is easier in the US than Korea, right? You drive for longer distances, faster. It doesn't seem so congested all the time. But no, I'm not looking forward to that. I prefer driving in the US compared to Korea, but I'm not looking forward to it. I prefer walking in Korea for sure. Next thing, June, food delivery, just the prices and options. It's just such a game changer, especially when you have kids. It's like, oh, I don't want to cook anything today. In the US, it'd be like, oh, am I going to really pay that exorbitant fee and tip on top to like order food? Or am I going to really drive somewhere, wait, pick it up, bring it back? Korea is the best of both worlds. Like it's cheap, it's fast, and you have so many options available to you. And so, yeah, it's really, really a game changer. The next one I've mentioned before, it's coupon dawn delivery. So I have heard that the US has caught up here.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard it's, a lot of things are next day, but I don't think it's next morning by 7 a.m. So, it's just one of those things where, of course, like immediate gratification when you order something, it's like within 12 hours it's there.
Yeah.
But also with the kids' school stuff, sometimes it's like, oh shoot, we forgot we needed that. Oh, is it still before 11? Oh great, it's only like 9 p.m. Order it. It's there before the kids go to school the next morning.
Yeah.
And it's just, the reliability, it's just so convenient and comfortable. So, yeah. Do you use dawn delivery a lot? Or do you still appreciate when it comes the next morning?
To be honest with you, there aren't a lot of situations where I really had to have it before 7.
Yeah.
But it is very satisfying that immediate feedback almost, that you can get something in such a short period of time.
Totally.
Yeah.
Next one I'm going to go with, and again, these are not stack ranked or in any particular order, just kind of a brain dump. Rest areas, 휴게소s.
Oh, 휴게소?
I don't know. It's just like the cleanliness of the bathrooms, the food options. There's so many, all the snacks that you can get. Yeah, it makes traveling across Korea kind of a joy compared to, again, what I'm used to in the US, which is like, let's just make this stop as fast as possible and get on the road again. So yeah, I really appreciate those. The OCR, so the optical character recognition license plate machines. So every parking garage here, you don't have to deal with like pulling a ticket, saving that ticket, storing that ticket on your windshield, like inserting that ticket when you leave, or you're afraid of losing it, so then you get charged the maximum amount. They just scan your license plate on the way in. They scan it when you're going to leave, or you enter it in and then you pay what you need before you go. Yeah, it just makes it a little bit more convenient. Next one, June, bus lane privilege. So, of course, they are HOV or high occupancy vehicle lanes in the US. 2 people or more, you can use the HOV lane. If you have an electric car, you can use the HOV lane. But because the bar is not that high, like people are in this lane all the time. And so sometimes it feels like you're not going any faster than the non-HOV lanes. But in Korea, at least on the main freeway, the main highway that goes from Pangyo to Seoul, yeah, we have 6 people in our car, and so we can use the bus lane. So it's just a cheat code. It makes it's so satisfying every time we like pass all these cars, save 30 minutes plus going one way into Seoul, and about that same amount coming out as well. So yeah, we will definitely miss that. This one's a little bit more meta. I'm gonna miss the feeling that things are constantly improving and being maintained. So, just some things where it's like all the intersections near me have turned into 4-way crossings, Shibuya crossing style. I think it's safer and it feels at least more predictable. And yeah, it's just like one by one, these things change over, and it's definitely an improvement. The light indicators on the ground, so that if you're looking down on your phone, you can like be alerted that you're about to go. The red, green countdowns and navigation apps telling you how long the green light's going to last or how long the red light's going to last, right? It's just this feeling I have that things are constantly improving. And it's not something that I remember feeling in the US. If anything, it was like the infrastructure is always degrading. It felt like, in a sense. So yeah, that's something I'll miss. I think convenience stores, to be honest, they've lost their novelty for me a bit. But just the accessibility and uniformity and consistency of them, It's like, oh, if I need anything, I know last minute I can get it from there. Of course, there are still a lot of things I wish they did carry, and sometimes like, oh, like I have to go to a big market for that. But yeah, overall, they're still in that. They're still nice to have. This one, I don't know if I ever mentioned it.
Oh.
We don't get physical spam mail in Korea. Have I mentioned that on the pod?
Do you get physical spam mail in the US?
Oh my god, it is so much. Like
Oh.
every day we get like a thick thing of physical mail, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
95% just junk mail.
Uh-huh.
But then it's frustrating because you can't just like wholesale throw it out. You have to like try to find the one or two important things you might be receiving that day.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, it's so ridiculous. And so it's so nice here not having to think or worry about that. Every piece of mail we get is very high signal.
Yeah.
I would say, maybe 20% of it is spam, but most of it's something valuable. And we only get one or two things a week, really, right? So, yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, this is obviously not stacked rank, June, because this next one for me is huge. The safety, the feeling that you can take late night walks, you aren't worried about your packages or your bikes getting stolen. You can leave their bike unlocked. I know there's a meme amongst foreigners, which is like the only thing that does get stolen in Korea are bikes. But at least in our experience, like our kids have parked their bikes without a lock all over Pangyo. Not once has it gotten taken away or anything. So it's always right where we left it, even overnight sometimes. And so, yeah, just being able to leave things unattended, whether it's a laptop or a bag at a cafe, at a playground, at a restaurant, or like, this doesn't come up that often, but when it does come up, it's so nice at the beach. Like in the US, when I leave my stuff on a towel at the beach, I'm like always paranoid. Like, is someone going to take this? So in a sense, like we can't all as a family go into the water. Or if we do, I'm always like keeping one eye, looking back, making sure my beach towel and the stuff we put on top is in line of sight for me, just to kind of deter someone from taking it. Again, it's just so nice to just leave it there and feel very free in that. So, yeah, next one is, this one's very interesting. I want to know how you think about this. I literally don't worry about getting ripped off when it comes to like service stuff. And what I mean by that is, I think generally I assume whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's getting my oil changed or some car maintenance or whatever, right? Getting a paint job done on the car, or like getting our air conditioner vents in our home like cleaned, right? I just feel like everyone's gonna offer roughly the same price, which is the best price, and really high service. Otherwise, I know they just wouldn't be in business. And so in the US, the comparison for me is like whenever I need to get a service job done, it's so stressful because I spend so much time researching the reviews, comparing prices, getting quotes, trying to like bargain them down to try to like make sure I'm getting a fair and reasonable price. And more than anything, like not getting scammed, right? Like, how do I know they're going to do a good job? How do I know they're not charging me two times what they should be? And in Korea, I just don't even think about that. And it's so nice. Yeah. Obviously, an add-on to this with the service industry and how nice it is in Korea, it's like no tipping. In particular, I'll call out restaurants, haircuts, and massages. Like, these are things I'm always not stressed, but it's always like, oh, it's so expensive. Like, you have to leave, 20% tip for all these things. And in Korea, again, it's just included in the price, or it's not expected to tip beyond what the price is. And so I feel so much better about getting all these service things done in Korea compared to America. Does that resonate with you? Like,
Why do you think that is, though?
I think, I don't know. I don't know if like the Korean equivalent of the Better Business Bureau or some organization that makes sure businesses are operating ethically. I don't know if the Korean version of that is just really good, or if consumers are so knowledgeable that they'll just like a scammy business or service cannot stay in business very long because they'll lose customers, or word will get out, or people will leave negative reviews. But for whatever reason, I also feel like in the US, like everyone's just trying to maximize their profit. And so if they can get away with scamming you, it's up to the individual to kind of like, take care of that and be responsible for that on their own. Yeah, I just feel like there's not this collective pushback against businesses that are not operating ethically or overcharging and things like that. Yeah. But do you feel that way? Like, do you ever think twice when you're going to get a service done, let's say, again, like air condition, cleaning, do you feel like you have to do a lot of research here, read reviews carefully, compare prices, or do you just like find the nearby one and just go for it?
I'm just realizing the mental model of when you're, let's say, searching for a service is going to be quite different compared to the US and Korea. Meaning that if, just by listening to you, if I were to be in the US, my number one thought is like, how can I not be scammed?
Yeah.
Or like, how can I not get the worst service?
Exactly. Yeah.
In Korea, when I'm searching, it's like, how do I get the best service out of the already okay ones?
Interesting. Yeah. Like you're trying to raise the ceiling rather than like raise the floor of the outcomes. One thing that just came to mind, I think I have mentioned this before, it's just density.
Yeah.
So in the US, it's like a plumber, like in the nearby area. Okay, there are like 5, right? Like that I can choose from. In Korea, I suspect there's 50, like within a reasonable area. But yeah, I think that density, and like word gets out and reputation is maybe so high. In America, I don't think consumers have as much choice.
Yeah.
So there's only one daycare nearby. There's only one plumber that can come, or only one car dealer, right, within a certain mile radius. So those are bad examples in a sense, because like there are, of course, in metropolitan areas, tons of plumbers, tons of car dealers. But I think you get my point. Overall, there's just, because America is so spread out, there's just not as much demand, and consumer choice.
Well, I think everything comes with a price, right? I think this hyper-optimized society in Korea could be a result of the super competitiveness and density, right? And so if you think about, of course, if you think about the life of the consumer, it's super convenient.
Much better in Korea,
but let's put our shoes in the views of the service providers, right? Yeah. Constant competition, you have to optimize, could be pretty stressful.
Yeah. One bad person putting bad reviews could like destroy your business and reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the same way, let's think about the daycare owner in a small US town that is the only daycare center. How relieving would that be?
Yeah. Well, you have no choice. Take it or leave it.
And
in a lot of ways, it does feel that way sometimes. Like, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
The consumer doesn't have as much leverage in the situation.
And so that daycare owner's life would be not as convenient and easy as it is in Korea, but they might have a different level of relief and comfort too. Yeah.
Anyway, this was a surprising one. I realized that I was just like, man, maybe because as we're transitioning back to the US, I'm having to think a lot more about these services, buying a car, getting plumbers, getting cleaners, all that stuff. And I just realized it hasn't been a stress in Korea as much. Final one is a big one, but just national healthcare coverage that isn't tied to employment. I know America has been improving in this, but I'm pretty sure America is dead last in the world when it comes to this. Like, just having a baseline level of affordable healthcare for everyone. And so, obviously, Korea, I think, is probably on the better end of this. And so just that contrast is especially stark.
I have a bit of a mixed feeling towards this.
Which one? The healthcare?
Everything that you listed.
Interesting.
Not only you, but every time I stumble upon, let's say, a reels of a foreigner saying like, what's so good about Korea? 99% of it is about the convenience, right? And I feel like the good, let's say there's a category called good characteristics of a country, right?
I know where you're going. Okay.
And I feel like there could be a tier system of like, let's say, it's kind of like the industry. Like there's like a primary industry, and then you move on to secondary, and then you move on to the tertiary, right? And like as the society evolves, I think you have to move on from like the physical thing to maybe metaphysical or philosophical thing, right? I've never once heard a foreigner say Korea is so good because of like some philosophical thing that we
freedom or like the people are I know what you mean.
I feel like of course, I'm very proud of the physical things or the convenience that Korea could provide.
Yeah.
But I would be more happy if we can move on from then, because I think we solved this problem, right?
Interesting.
Maintain this, and then let's move on to, let's say, what is the overall philosophy of Korea? Because
Yeah.
I think that is something that Korea lacks. We don't have a philosophy towards things.
Yeah.
We don't, everything that we choose to do is towards efficiency and not philosophy. And I think sometimes I witness this in, like, let's say, developed Western European countries or Northern European countries, where they deliberately choose something that is not as efficient, maybe, but choose because it's their philosophy.
It's in line with how they want their country to be,
Yeah.
like the ethos of it,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the principles of it.
I feel like Korea really needs that and would greatly benefit from that.
I still remember the episode where this came up, which is like, June, does Korea not have like a founding document
Yeah.
or like a constitution upon which is very not legalistic but like principled,
Yeah.
right? Like Declaration of Independence in America, for example. And you were like, I don't think so.
We have a constitution, but I don't think
No,
it's
but like a Declaration of Independence. Yeah. Like,
like a white paper.
it's more like, what is this country founded on?
Yeah.
And, in the US, everyone will always quote like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Like that is what the founding fathers set out and envisioned America to become.
Yeah.
And yeah, Korea doesn't have that tagline or slogan or founding principles, right?
Yeah.
It's maybe just like independence, not being conquered, being powerful, developing economically maybe, but none of those are more philosophical like you're saying. Yeah.
What if there is something latent
Yeah.
that people don't really realize, but there is one? Don't say Jeong and Han.
I was going to say that, right? Jeong, Han, and Nunchi. The founding principles of Korea.
That is so sad if Han is a founding principle of our society.
Yeah.
But let's say, no, in all seriousness, you stay here for almost 5 years. If you can like retrofit
Yeah.
a founding principle of what modern Korea is right now,
Man,
could
that's
there
a
be
tough
one?
question. Okay, like what it is or what I think it could aspire to be.
Maybe both.
Again, unfortunately, I think I have an overall, I think a balanced but slightly negative perspective of modern Korea.
Yeah.
Right? Hyper competitive, obsessed with economic gain and status and luxury and things like that. But I do think the one thing that I really, really deeply appreciate is this kind of putting the collectivist good ahead of like the individual like want in that moment. And just making sure everything in a sense is set up so that no one can maybe unfairly get an advantage compared to the next person. And I think that enforces some things like very strict adherence to the letter of the law, right? Some of the rules and regulations that are put in place. But also it extends to things like, not trashing the public restrooms because everyone's using it. So let's take care of it type ethos. So yeah, I think that is probably something that I think is very different between Korea and America, but I think is true in Korea and kind of a positive. Yeah, just kind of collectivist, let's do what's right for the greater whole mentality and not just like every single person trying to like hyper optimize their own outcome within society, right? Because you can imagine if it was like super competitive, hey, I use the restroom, I don't need to clean up after it, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Like, why do I care about the next person coming along? Or whether it's a playground or anything, right? Like in a lot of the places I grew up in the US, like every public basketball court, the rim was broken off because people would just vandalize it, right? And there was no accountability, no follow through. It was just everyone had agreed, well, it's just unpreventable. It's just how it is. And therefore, new basketball rims didn't get put up. And like now people can't have public basketball courts. And there are, so from that perspective, I think Korea it's a really good part of Korean culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take care of everything for the good of all of us. So
I think while I do think that Korea should try to be more diverse in the way that they think and like physically in the demographic. But something that we can really take advantage of the homogeneity
Nailed it.
and the collective mindset
Yeah.
is that it's very easy, much more easier to empathize towards others. Meaning that, let's go back to the public bathroom analogy.
Yeah.
Like, it's because I have a very strong feeling that the other person wouldn't like this, so I do not do that.
Yeah.
I think there's a more stronger and easier way to understand that in Korea.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the, let's say, driving force behind it is the healthiest, but I think the outcome is definitely great.
Yeah.
Which is everyone generally follows the rules, takes care of things publicly, and it benefits themselves, but also their neighbors. But I do think the root cause of that is like they don't want to be nuchibad and shamed.
That's the same, because, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to feel that shame from others, which is why they do it. But again, the outcome I think is quite good.
And it also got me thinking about, how does a country define a founding principle if they've already been founded, right? And I think America is very lucky in that they founded a country very later on in history.
I see what you mean.
And so
Yeah.
they had a chance to actually do that. But like, how can you define a founding principle of a country that's been here for like thousands of years, right?
Interesting.
At one point, you have to do it, right? I think China maybe
I was
could
going to
have
bring
done.
up China because
Yeah.
they're a modern example of this, right? With the 5-year economic plans
Yeah.
and the change of leadership.
But they had to go through that.
Yeah, very hard time.
Yeah, a lot of sacrifice.
Korea had a very hard time too. I think that's where I wasn't going to bring this up now, but one of the realizations I had, and I think it colors a lot of Korean politics and society, it's like a new democracy. Right? It's only 30-ish
That's true.
years old as a democracy, right? And so the demonstration culture, like people really not standing up and fighting against, let's say, I'm forgetting all my words. And being very anti-corruption, high accountability of their political leaders and things like that. I think it's, again, shockingly refreshing in a lot of ways. And I hope Korea doesn't lose that, right? But I think they still really stand up against anything they see as corrupt. And I appreciate that. Yeah. But getting back to your point, it's like, yeah, it is a new democracy. I think all it takes is a leader with a very strong vision and like realization that maybe the country needs to start establishing some of these guiding principles for how Korea wants to grow over the next 50 years, let's say. But
I do think Korea had its chance, let's say, after a war, right?
Yeah.
That when we were basically starting from
over.
scratch. But I think the difference between how the US started and how Korea started is that the US didn't start as a post-war country, right? They started from a very abundant mindset, right?
from the perspective of European settlers, yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, the indigenous people got wrecked.
Yeah.
But yeah.
In that, yeah, like the founding fathers' perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, we have this abundance of land. Let's start a great country, right? But I think Korea was in a very different situation where we just had to survive.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure we had something like that, and we still do have something like that, but it didn't really resonate with the people, I guess, at the time, and was more about economic development. Yeah.
I think as Korea has transitioned out of this survival state mentality and, now can look forward towards a, let's say, thriving future, maybe it becomes more, practical and possible to start thinking about the more abstract principles on which the country wants to grow moving forward. But, all that said, like, again, Korea is the miracle of the Han River, like Korea's economic development, like what modern Korea looks like today is just incredible. Like, I think all Koreans should be incredibly proud of how this country has developed over the last 70 years. It's not perfect, but, it is such a stark improvement overall in my mind compared to what it was before. And now I think, of course, they can maybe course correct things they might have gone too far extreme on. But yeah. Okay, next set of some reflections, June. Things I'll miss in Korea. I would call it the restaurant dining norms. So, you know, when you sit down, you just call someone when you're ready to order, or you order from the kiosk. You don't have to wait for the waiter or waitress to come to you, get your initial drink order, come back later to get your main order. You just like call, they come, you order. And when you're done, you also just get up and leave and pay. That's so nice. You know, water and banchan and stuff being self-service. And then, of course, again, I'll mention again, no tipping. I don't know how I'll feel going back to like the more traditional restaurant experience. I think it'll be quite an adjustment. Yeah. They're a class of everyday Korean foods that I just never ate regularly in the US. It was kind of a special treat or once in a while. I'll call out gukbap. I found my love for gukbap. Korean barbecue, specifically like the, you know, samgyeopsal 돼지고기 style. I think in the US for me it was always like primarily galbi. Yeah, and so I think moving over to pork primarily I think has been a bit of a change. And I like it actually. And finally I'll say some of the comfort foods like gimbap, ramen. Yeah, that was a very consistent meal for me. I might probably ate it once a week for like a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a go-to?
Yeah, there's one near our place that I like to go to. 밥이랑 커피랑. Yeah.
Oh, that place is expensive.
Is it? They kept saying like, we should charge more. It's manwon for kimbap roll and a ramen bowl. Yeah. I think Pangyo is generally more expensive than Seoul though. Yeah. But yeah, those foods are things that, you know, I could go to a Korean grocery store, get a roll of gimbap. But again, it's just like, it's so easy and convenient to find these everywhere in Korea. And yeah, I will miss them dearly.
Yeah.
I'm going to add on to this with cafe culture. I'm still not a big coffee drinker overall. But, you know, I can appreciate the amount of like care that goes into the aesthetic, the quality of the coffee. Just like, you know, Korean cafes, they're so abundant and so much variety, and they're all beautiful and, you know, Instagrammable. And so yeah, I think at least in the suburbs in America it's not like that, right? A lot of strip malls, they're all Starbucks. It's just like kind of nothing like that cafe aesthetic. And so
I think in terms of coffee quality, I think what Korea is best at is the average quality that you can just get by just walking into any cafe. I am pretty sure that, like, let's say Japan or the US, if you find the best of the best coffee, I think it'll be better than the best coffee here in Korea. But like your average coffee, I think the quality is very high. And I think it's like the top in the world.
Yeah. I think it's in line with the earlier comment I made about service industry in general. Like if you're not good, you're not going to stay in business. And so overall, the average level is very, very high. This one, okay, it's a bit out of order, but I wrote down some like just snapshots of moments with kids. Just like routines that we had as a family that we did a lot that I hope the kids will remember too. For example, every time I walked the kids home from the bus stop, you know, randomly stopping by for some street food, whether it's like 오징어 튀김 or 어묵 or gimbap or bungeoppang, right? 호두과자, like I just love that. Just like walking home, they smell it or they have a craving. We get it on the way home and we eat it, right? You know, just teaching my second and third kid to bike ride in the apartment danji area. And just like in general, bike riding everywhere. I think our most common routes were to Hyundai Dakajam or to the nearby, you know, Hwarang Park, Hwarang Gongwon. Yeah, just like bike riding as a family or pushing our youngest one in the stroller and just going on these walks. I think we did so frequently. And it's kind of those everyday things that I think I'll miss, and I really hope the kids remember. Speaking of the nearby park, June, there's like a water splash pad during the summer. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
They installed a mud trail. I think it's called a...
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What's the Korean word?
황토길?
Yeah, 황토길.
Yeah.
So, you know, our kids love taking off their socks and shoes and getting really dirty doing this mud walk. And, you know, having picnics there, flying kites, throwing balls. I think, it was a staple of our day-to-day life, and I hope also they'll remember it. And finally, I mentioned it earlier, but convenience store runs. For me, convenience stores have lost their luster, but for my kids, they they love it. Like, oh, can we go to a Pin and Gem run? Like, we'll get ice cream. What can we buy? Oh, one snack, one drink. And then now it's especially, I think, sweet because the older kids just take the whole kid. Like, my wife and I don't have to accompany them. So you just give them the credit card and they'll go buy and make sure that they're responsible with what they purchase. And yeah, it gives them some independence too. Yeah, so I think these are a category of things that I just hope they'll remember, and I hope I remember too. This one's a little surprising actually for me, but I was thinking about it and I stand by this. The holidays in Korea feel way less stressful to me.
Stressful?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to do anything. Is that why?
It's, for example, it's just driving 2 hours versus flying 6. Like a 6-hour flight, right? It's so stressful, expensive, tedious. But you just, hop in the car and drive 2 hours to get where you need to go. And to your point, it's not that we don't do anything, but it's always similar. Like the routine is established, right? Well, we're going to do this. There's nothing extra to think about or prepare. You don't have to figure out what the menu's going to be. It's just like always the same. And there is a niceness to that. Again, there's downsides. But at least my recollection of all these, Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays in the US, it's always like stressful. What are we going to do? What are we going to cook? Who are we going to invite? Where are we going to go this year? You always have to plan these logistics. And then of course I love Christmas, right? But it's like, I think Christmas in Korea was much simpler. You just buy gifts for your family, right? But in the US, it's like, oh, you have to buy so many gifts for so many people. And it's like you have to be thoughtful and purchase in advance and make sure it arrives in time. It's just so much work.
But isn't that more memorable, though?
There's a joy to it, for sure.
I feel like I can't distinguish the past 20 chuseoks. It's just the same, playbook. Whatever. I can exactly depict what's gonna happen in this year's Chuseok from beginning to end.
Again, there's trade-offs. I would say in the US, I agree, it's more memorable, maybe more meaningful even, but it's also more stressful and more work in my mind. So there is a comfort in just the routine that I came to appreciate here in Korea. Kind of related to this, I put it under the geography umbrella. It's like inter-Asia travel. I'm going to miss being able to go to so many countries. And, in these 5 years, we went to Taiwan, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, Japan multiple times, Australia, Guam.
Wow.
These are countries I, maybe would have gone to one of those in 5 years because it's such a big trip from the US. But from Korea, it's much more accessible.
You basically went to everywhere that you can go except for China.
I have 2 regrets. I'll get to it later. But since it came up, we didn't get to go to China and we didn't get to go to New Zealand. So
New Zealand.
It's still super far. New Zealand's super far still from Korea. But it's at least we're on the same what is it? It's not
altitude.
Yeah,
what's that?
We just fly south. We don't have to fly south and west from the US. It at least feels a little bit more accessible.
Longitude.
We're on the same longitude, correct?
Yeah.
And then the final one in this category before I take a break is, there's some traditions we had as a family, right? And these will continue, I believe, but still nonetheless, I will miss them. Friday nights, burger night, and then we do movies. We always microwave popcorn. Saturdays were supposed to be cooking Saturdays where we cook something together as a family. That was very inconsistent. But we'd also on the weekends camp together, which means we just sleep all together on the floor of our living room.
Aww.
Yeah, and we did that far too much and my quality of sleep was so low. But I know this is something I'll miss. Not that we can't do it, and we might carry this tradition forward in the US. But for some reason, it just felt so much easier to do or more natural in Korea. You do sleep on the floor. You just bring out the sleep pad and you sleep on the floor. Right? It's not sacrificing your bed or mattress for it. And so it just felt a little bit more natural here. Yeah. All right, June. Next, I have some sensory things, but nothing like when you did your 5 senses of America. That was next level. But yeah, just some quick things like I think the smell of street food, specifically 붕어빵 and 호두과자, it's just so good. It's so hard to resist, right? I'm not alone in that. It's like, do you feel the same way?
I think the general Korean consensus is the top tier of that is the deli manju.
What's deli manju?
It's like it has like a corn kind of mold, and then it has the custard inside.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that it smells much better than it actually tastes.
I agree with that.
But it smells so good.
Oh, we need the tier rankings of like irresistible smells.
Yeah.
For me, it's 호두과자. Even though I don't like it, I think I like 붕어빵 better, but the 호두과자 smell is stronger for me. It's like so alluring.
Yeah.
Sound-wise, I came up with the cicada humming during the summer. Subway chimes, of course, and then the cacao dial tone. Yeah, I think that's very recognizable, right? And I think I'll always be teleported to Korea when I hear these. Visually, just I know you hate it, but I love it. The bright neon street signs everywhere, like just the 5-story villa just like plastered with signs for the stores inside. The crowded alleyways and just even around here in this neighborhood, like those alleyways for me, it's like nothing like it in the U.S. from especially suburbia, right? So yeah, I'll miss that dearly. And then this one is a throw, like again in California, it's not as seasonal, but I love just like warm summer nights, even though it's humid. I love that feeling of just like being blasted by humidity. I definitely appreciate that. So. You get that on the East Coast, but I had been living in California so long, so I hadn't gotten that as much. Seasonal rhythms overall, again, in line with the lack of seasons in California. But, in spring it's cherry blossom season. In summer, you get the cicadas. By the way, like, does the cicada hum make you feel even hotter? Is that like a consensus?
Oh.
I just feel like the humming makes me feel hotter. It's like...
It does give you a sense that it's like peak summer,
right?
Because that's when they actually start humming.
I know it's not actually making it hotter, but whenever I hear it, I'm just like, oh, it's even hotter than it should be.
Yeah. Oh, I never thought of it that way, but I think it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love these public splash pads and mini water parks, free in the summer too. Fall, it's about fall leaves and then hiking season for me. And then, of course, in the winter, the first snow. Just playing in the snow in front of the house, I think, or apartment. Just our kids are so happy, and that's all they need to have a great time. And then, in line with the seasons, there's the seasonal street foods, right? 붕어빵 in the winter, 빙수 in the summer.
Oh, 빙수 is so good.
Yeah. And then the seasonal fruits, right? So strawberries, I think, in 귤 in the winter. Shine muscat, I think, comes in the fall. Of course, watermelon, this is equal in the US too, but watermelon in the summer. And then apples in the fall too. So it's just like, I think we're spoiled in California. The produce is good year round.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, whether it's imported or grown locally or whatever. But in Korea, I've really come to appreciate when it comes into season, because you can't get it year round, like it's extra good to me. So yeah, I like that. I think in general, like there's this feeling, June, even though we're not in Seoul, we're still in, kind of a urban area. I've never been one to like urban areas, but I've come to appreciate it greatly, the walkability, but also this feeling that like there's always something going on, or you can always go out and do something, whether it's just meet up at a gogi at 12 o'clock or whatever it might be, that you definitely don't get in suburbia, right? And so I think I will miss that. And let me be clear, it's not that I went out a lot. Like I think really once every 2-3 months I'll leave the house after 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Like that's how infrequently I went out. But just the fact that I know I could makes life better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like the island mentality too. It's just like, even if I'm not leaving the island, the fact that I can't leave the island makes me feel worse about being stuck here.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think just having that available, even if I'm not doing it frequently, it makes me feel mentally, everything's more exciting. There's more possibility in life. Yeah. And then I guess final one in this section, it's just about some of the nature stuff. So, just, of course, there's tons of nature overall, right? There's trees, there's shrubbery in the US. There's massive national parks and all these things that are wonderful. But at least like day to day, I felt much more close to nature in Korea in like a weird way. And I guess what I mean is specifically there's like running trails by the water. And that was not as easy to get to. I would have to drive somewhere to get to that in the US. Versus here, I just like pop out of my apartment. There's hikes I can get to just by subway, right? I don't have to, again, drive and park and plan all this stuff. I can just like take a 10-minute subway ride to Cheonggyesan and go up that. Even though I don't take advantage of it, I just like, I feel great comfort whenever I see the public exercise equipment.
Oh.
Maybe like one ajashi or ajuma's using like the machine that I would never use, but it's endearing whenever I see it. And of course I've mentioned before, like, you know, just seeing the mallard ducks, for example, and just like seeing some of the circle of life in a sense, whether it's the birds or anything. So yeah, I like that feeling that I've gotten here in Korea. June, next section is home life. Specifically, sorry, like the house in Korea, 아파트. There's not much that I will miss.
Oh.
But the three things I came up with are I will miss heated floors. Nothing better than like lying on a warm floor in winter.
Yeah.
It's so nice. I will miss the double paned window systems. I think they're really good.
Yeah.
They're great for insulation, great for sound isolation, and just quiet. And they just work so well. Again, they don't exist in most homes in the US. Maybe at least in the homes I've lived, I've never had something like this. And then I've talked about it many times before. I will miss my Koei water dispenser. But that's it, man.
Nothing else about the house?
Nope.
Wait.
I will not miss the tiny, washing machine. I will not miss, June, the tiny surface counter dishwasher. I will not miss the tiny multi-range microwave oven combination. I will not miss the lack of garbage disposal. I will not miss sorting my trash. I will not miss 음식물 쓰레기. I will not miss lack of HVAC and like the constant feeling of still air in the house. I will not miss inverter air conditioners. Inverterless. I will not miss the standalone AC units. I will not miss like drying racks and like none of this I will miss.
But what about the convenience that comes from living in the apartment, like the 관리, like the maintenance and stuff like that?
I will not miss that. I don't mind changing my own light bulbs or doing some minor housework. I don't mind that at all. In fact, I kind of miss it a little bit, like being handy. For example, like I never had a set of power tools here in Korea. And so therefore, when I was like constructing IKEA furniture, like I just couldn't do it as well or as easily. And like there's always things I was like, I wish I had my drill set. I wish I had my tools. I'm not that handy, but I think those small things I don't miss at all. In fact, I'll look forward to doing them again. Yeah. I really can't think of anything else I'll miss. The security that comes from living in an apartment community, I already mentioned I'll miss that. But I won't miss mean neighbors. I won't miss 할머니s at the gym. I won't miss, just like,
Is she still there?
I stopped golfing, so I don't know. But no, I won't miss any of that, June. I miss my home so much. I miss, having space. I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Okay, June, I think these are a lot more of the surface level things that are done. Let me just keep going. Is this okay, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, I guess the people now, of course, like there's a lot of good friends I've made. But overall, I will miss the ability to see my grandmother, even though it didn't happen too often, maybe 3, 4, 5 times a year. Still, just knowing that we could go see her. If anything happens, we can be there for her. Knowing that she's there, I think being in the same time zone to make calls, things like that. Of course, I'll miss that. I think I'll miss the ability to really make life easier for friends and family that are visiting. I think, again, Korea's been such a when you host people in the US, it's like, it's nothing like really special. Like it's just within America, right? But when people are traveling all the way to Korea or Asia, especially if they're not Korean, like just being able to make their trip that much more smoother, give them recommendations, right? Like help take care of things for them. I think it was really fun for us. And so I think I'll miss the ability to do that. And then I have often lamented, June, the lack of these loose connections, but there were a couple of these I'll call micro communities that I will miss. So yoga with the ajuma들,
Yeah.
I'll miss yoga there. I'll miss the few friendly faces I've come to know in the apartment community. I'll miss my church life group, small group. That one has been a huge blessing, and actually my wife and I realized like we've only been in that group for like a year and a half. Yeah, it just feels like that was such a big difference in how we felt community here in Korea. So we will really miss that. Specifically the Korean daycare and kindergartens. I am still so amazed, and I feel like so fortunate that our kids got to attend them for as long as they did. Just the care that the teachers provide, and just the nurturing environment, but also like educational and learning into, it's just they're so good. Of course, certain parents we've made good friends with at our older kids school. And then there was also this group I think I mentioned a couple times, our Trans Asia Summit. So it was our family in Korea, another family in Taiwan, another family in Singapore. We would try every year to get together to do a short trip within Asia. And so yeah, we could still do it with them, but now being in the US moving forward is going to be much, much harder and like a much bigger commitment. So I don't know if we'll be able to continue. Yeah, I'll miss these micro communities. Yeah, I think moving on to something I've mentioned many times, this is one of the bigger ones. I will miss the feeling of just fitting in, being invisible in a sense, but more than that, just like blending in, right? I've often made the analogy, I think, being Korean in Korea is like being white in America. It's like, okay, you're just accepted. There's no questions, no qualifiers. You don't feel like your race or how you look will ever hold you back in any way or result in like preconceived judgment or anything, right? So I recognize this is a blessing, and not everyone in Korea experiences this, but as a Korean American, I feel like I've been fortunate in that way. And actually, I'll take it a step further. I feel like being Korean American in Korea is even like more of an advantage in certain ways. Like, I don't know if this is okay to say, I feel like it's almost like being Jewish in America. So hear me out, not just white, but Jews have a tight community. It feels like they're in a lot of very, relative to their small population, a lot of very powerful or privileged positions. And but they also get a lot of hate for that, right? And I think Korean Americans and Gyopos in Korea similarly are in a very advantageous position, but we also get some hate. And so yeah, I don't know if that was a safe analogy. Definitely not a safe analogy to make, but I made it. So yeah, I think I don't know if I'll talk more about this later, but okay, I think that's all of them before I move on to things I will not miss, things I'm neutral about, and personal reflections. So sorry, listeners, this is the Daniel brain dump. So I've already mentioned some things I will not miss, but let me keep going. Things I will not miss, June. The narrow parking spots.
Yes.
Jeez, like literally, I have to be a contortionist sometimes, like sucking my stomach all the way. I'm still like scraping myself while holding the door open or putting my finger in between my door and the car next to me so I don't damage the car, as I'm like literally squeezing and like scratching myself to get out of the car. Or like some of the turns I've had to make to like turn around or park in these spots, in these parking garages, it's literally like a 20-point turn, like forward 1 inch, back 1 inch, forward 1 inch, back, just to like squeeze into this tiny spot that I then have to like contort my body to get out of. It's absurd, some of the situations I've been in. Along with the parking in general, anytime I'm planning to drive somewhere, again, I've said this before, I have to add 5 minutes at least before and after to get into the elevator, go down to the parking garage, walk to my car, get out of the parking spot, right? And then on the flip side, when I arrive, I have to, get in, find the parking spot, park, and then go up the elevator to get where I'm trying to go. Man, it's just like when I was in the US, I remember it's just like, 10 seconds, I'm like in my house and then I'm on the road. And then when you park, you just like park and then you just like go into the store. There's none of this additional added time in the beginning and in the end. June, you knew this was coming. Things I will not miss. Nunchi. I just feel like it's so, even though I can agree it results in some good outcomes, like generally good behavior in public, I just feel like it's so passive aggressive. It's just like I wish it could be more open and direct, or really like people wouldn't judge as much when you do something that is out of the norm. Yeah, I will never miss, I will never forget that feeling of like, again, walking from the airport general terminal into the Korean Airlines area and just like the absolute silence and judgment that came when my kids were being a little bit loud. It's just like, anyway, I will not miss Korean Costco's at all. It's just not a pleasant experience for me. We made the mistake of going to Costco in Korea on the weekend the other time. It was like, it's not like peak time. It should be okay. Big mistake. It was the worst idea. It's just so crowded. Things are out. Like, so 복잡해. Yeah, so I will not miss that. Especially in contrast to how much I love going to Costco in the US. I will not miss not being able to pay for experiences that I'm willing to pay for. Again, namely tickets and concerts and things like that. It's like, I don't think my wife is going to go to a BTS concert in Korea, sadly. But in America, she'll probably go to many. It's just, again, if you're willing to pay, I think you can get them more easily in the US. June, I will not miss Korean swimming pools. The rules are so strict. It's not for fun, it's for exercise. It feels very kid unfriendly for me. And, Korean pools being the specific example, but in general, the rules being against what I would consider common sense, like sometimes. Anyway, like if you're bald, you shouldn't have to wear a swim cap, right? Anyway, this is a big one, June.
Well, you still have to wear a swim cap even if you're bald.
Yeah. These final two are more meaty, though. I will not miss the feeling of being incompetent. Just like, I feel so unable to get anything I need to get done easily in Korea. Everything is difficult for me. And I blame, it's my own fault, right? It's my language inability, etc. But yeah, I feel so competent in the US and I miss that feeling desperately. I'm just so helpless here. And it's so much better with like, I have the AI translation on my phone and like I can get by. But I don't think I quite realize how much friction and overhead there is mentally. And like every little thing is not easy for me. And so in line with that, I think it's just being a foreigner too. I think every interaction feels like there's additional friction, right? So for example, there's things I can't do in online banking because I'm a foreigner. I can't do online things at the Jumin Center. I have to go in person to get documents because I'm a foreigner. Proving that I'm married to my wife as a foreigner, it is so painful and so difficult. And like every last thing, it just seems so hard. And, in addition to this, it's like registering for Korean apps or having to register before you do anything in Korea. Like I remember we were trying to play badminton in the local like health center in Korea. And like at some point, like they just switched over where you have to have an account. You have to do everything online. You can't do in-person kiosk. And I was just sitting there, like my son and I had come on a day off and we were expecting to play, and it took me 35 minutes with the help of the person. And they were confused. They're like, this is not working. Okay, let me reset the password. It's like blah, blah, blah. It's like, finally we got it. But 35 minutes later. So these are things I will not miss. And then June, next section. These are things I am very conflicted about. A little neutral.
Oh wait, before that, I had some thoughts.
Okay.
First of all, I think you're about the nunchi thing.
Yeah.
I think you're at this very weird limbo state where that you can feel the nunchi, but you don't know exactly how to behave. Right?
Yeah.
It's either you can either have very good nunchi and know exactly how to behave
Yeah,
or fit
yeah.
in, or you have zero nunchi, so you don't really care.
Yeah. You're
So you're in
blissfully
this, like,
unaware.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then about everything having more friction because you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
And I felt like you were the jampong in the 5 jjajangmyeon. It's like because Korea is hyper optimized in a very certain way,
Yeah.
in a very homogenous society. And I think, yeah, the expense of that is that one,
The exception cases
that
are
jampong.
particularly painful.
And then you know what I realized? I think we should have done this the opposite order.
No, June, we'll bring it home with the emotional self-reflection.
Okay.
But again, I think these are very... Yeah, I don't think that any of these were super...
No, it's very understandable.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, June, there's a bucket of things I feel very mixed about.
Oh, this one's interesting.
Elevators.
Oh, you feel mixed now because you just had a negative feeling towards.
No, there's very good things about elevators. So, for example, the
Canceling.
close button works. You can cancel buttons. It's functional. I still can't stand. I get so angry, irrationally angry when I see them not operating, I think, in a smart manner.
See, that thing I never got. Like, how
It happens all the time. Like,
is this just your apartment?
no, I'm at Hyundai Baekgajang. I see 3 elevators on the same floor going the same direction. That drives me nuts. There's no way that's optimal. And I think I would call it in computer science terms, it's a greedy algorithm and a very simple, naive one, which is like if someone presses up, all the elevators are going to go to that floor, right? Whereas in my mind, it should be like, well, if one's already going there, the other ones wait for another thing to go to.
Well, see, the elevator in my building doesn't behave that way.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have 2 units, and did you recognize that? Only one
Will go.
The
Yeah,
one
yeah.
that's closer to my floor would
Yeah.
move.
This is not everywhere, but I see it a lot.
Interesting.
Especially in malls. And I think for us, because we, for a long time, always took our stroller around, we were kind of forced to use the elevator. And it is so infuriating to me.
But why do you have? Oh, that's yeah. Now I understand why you have mixed
Yeah,
feelings.
so it's mixed. There's some good about the elevators and there's some bad about the elevators. I can appreciate the silent culture in elevators, but then sometimes that really bugs me because I feel like I want to have a conversation and I don't want everyone to nunchiba me. So elevators are mixed. Also, June, I think like in Korea, at least for me, I spend so much time in elevators compared to the US.
Yeah.
Like so much.
It's a vertical.
It's a vertical
City,
society.
yeah.
Apartment complexes. The buildings are like tall, and you always have to use it unless you're gonna climb 7 stairs to get to your, dentist or whatever. It's just like you spend so much time in elevators, and so it I think that exacerbates my feeling. I said I'm neutral on the metric system. Like I've come to really appreciate it, and I think I said before, in some ways I prefer it. But I think I'm looking forward to getting back into the imperial system.
Why?
It's still, you can't undo 37 years of, like,
It's
36
just
years
personal.
of living
It's
it.
just your personal.
Yeah. I'm, but I appreciate it's superior, right? But I'm still always Googling, like, oh, what's this size in centimeters, or what's my proper shoe size, or all these things, right? So,
Interesting.
Yeah, just going back to what I know. But I also feel like less civilized when I use the American system. It's like I know the rest of the world uses, metric. It's just I feel less civilized. But I have to admit, I'm looking forward to getting back to what I know. I realize a lot of this might be like nunchi related. So okay, back in parking, I'm conflicted. So I've come to prefer it. I think it's superior. But there are the occasions where I want to just pull in. Specifically when I want easy access to my trunk. So like at Costco. But I feel like because everyone's still backing in, I just back in. And I'm like, I hate backing in. It's so much harder to get to the trunk.
Why do you think that is? Because I don't drive, I don't really know.
Why do I
Wha-
feel like I can't just do
Oh,
front
why?
end parking?
No, why is that a culture in Korea?
Oh, I do think it's superior, but I think I would just say it's like the gukral thing. Like
Why
it's
is it?
just
Why
it's
is it
just generally
superior?
accepted because the back wheels are usually the fixed ones
Mm-hmm.
and the front wheels are the only ones that turn. It is easier to accurately back into a parking spot than it is to pull in. Is my understanding. So, but that's one of those, June. This is like in the category of things that when I first witnessed it in Korea, I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Koreans are so weird.
Yeah.
Why are they doing it? And then I actually do a little research and it's like, well, actually, back-in parking is superior for these reasons. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I was ignorant. I have many examples like that, but, this is a good one that just because you brought it up.
I was thinking maybe it could be more of a mentality thing, right? Like enduring the suffering of now for a better future.
No. We brought up all these theories.
Yeah.
I also had the theory that Koreans, when they grocery shop, they don't buy as much in one go, right?
Yeah.
Because they just go more frequently.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not a huge. They're not that access to the trunk is not as big of a deal to them, right? I had all these theories about it. I'm not sure. I think there might be something to it too. And your, what you were saying is like optimize, like put the pain up front so that you can exit more quickly, right? But anyway, I am neutral about having to I feel like in Korea I have to schedule everything in advance, right? So movie theater seats, restaurant reservations. Like on the one hand, it's a hassle, but on the other hand, there's like a security that comes from having a reservation and calling ahead, seeing what the wait's like, right? And in the US, I'm just so accustomed, just like, well, let's just go and see. And it's just like I don't ever expect there to be a big wait, right? So I think that's mixed feelings. Oh, this one's good. Salty snacks and sweet desserts. I miss them, but I'm so they're so addictive and unhealthy.
Yeah.
I told you I don't really snack in Korea because I go to the Pyeongjam, I look at all these sweet snacks. I'm like, I don't really want any of them. But in the US, I go to the snack department. I'm like Doritos, Cheetos, like salt and vinegar. Like I want them all. So it's like it's mixed. Also, I think one way that I've changed, June, I eat so much more sugar in Korea. It's just the accessibility, I think, of ice cream and cafes and desserts everywhere. Also, it's like part of the culture here. Like after you eat something spicy, after you drink or whatever, it's like go get something sweet, right? I think that's part of the culture here. I don't know if I picked it up, but yeah, I realized like I always crave sweet stuff in Korea now, and I don't remember feeling that way as much in the U.S.
I think Korean listeners might be surprised by this because the general understanding of Koreans towards sugar consumption is that
America's way up.
is it not?
I think that's right. And so this is maybe just like a gut check. But I think, okay, the way I would differentiate my experience is I think in Korea, I eat less sweet stuff, but very frequently. Right? It's like, oh, an ice cream here and there or dessert after every meal. Whereas in America, you don't eat it as frequently. But when I did eat it, super sweet and heavy and bad for you.
A quick ChatGPT research tells me that the US consumes 1.7 to 1.9 times more sugar.
Than Korea.
Yeah, per year.
I believe that. But for whatever reason,
I guess this is the thing.
Yeah.
I think if you want to eat, I think I might have brought this up in some other episode, but I think if you want to eat really healthy, it's easier to do that in the US.
In the US, yeah.
But just average healthy food is better to access in Korea.
I agree with that. Yeah. Salty snacks, though. Yeah, there's a dearth of salty snacks in Korea for sure. Trash sorting, I feel neutral about this, mixed again. I recognize the benefits in Korea, but I'm also looking forward to just like throwing everything away in one giant bag. I'll feel guilty doing it, but I think very quickly I'll acclimate and just feel comfortable. Yeah. That's it. Neutral, mixed feelings. These are all a little bit more shallow than you were thinking, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I that's why I didn't like it either. It felt very shallow. But yeah. Final section, June. Personal growth. And like overall reflections. June, okay, let's see. I wrote a section for some regrets. I think, again, some of the more surface level things. There were some unchecked bucket list items. I never got to hike much. Baekdu-san, Sorak-san, Hara-san, Jiri-san. Didn't go to any of them.
Wait, Baekdu-san is in North Korea.
Oh, what's the one in Central Seoul?
Oh, Bukhansan?
Wait, how is Bukhansan not in North Korea? That sounds like a North Korean mountain.
It's a different Chinese character, but I understand.
I also want to go to Baekdu-san.
Yeah.
But that might never happen. Okay, this one if any listener has any connection to Baekyeondo, please reach out, like by email.
백령도, yeah.
Baekryongdo.
백령도.
Baekryongdo. No?
It's the Korean pronunciation system where if the kiuk comes before the real, the kiuk becomes a iung.
Iung. Oh, Baekryongdo.
Oh, 백령도.
Baekryongdo.
백령도.
If anyone has any connection there, again, my grandma and mom grew up there, so my 할머니 and 엄마 grew up there. I would love to see if they can be some connection. But yeah, I really wanted to visit this, especially with my mom, but we never got a chance to. It's really hard to get to. It's like a 6-hour boat ride, one way from Incheon or whatever, and there's not much to do on the island, I think, once you get there. But yeah, I really wish I could have done this, but never got to. And then, of course, June, I was painfully reminded of this one at the listener meet and greet. I was really hoping to be an extra in a K-drama, but yeah, it never happened. I didn't put much work into it, but yeah, it never happened. Travel-wise, I said earlier, I never got to see southwest of Seoul, right? Jeollado, Jeollanam-do. One of our listeners sent us this really detailed email highlighting all of their favorite, like kind of off the beaten path, non-touristy places in Korea to visit. They all sounded awesome. Especially, I think, Korea has these hundreds, if not thousands of little islands on the south coast. Yeah. And I think most of them are like, you can have a one-night bed and breakfast or something, like a really fun experience there. Never got to travel to one of those. And then overall, just like, I said earlier, never traveled to New Zealand and China. Those are two places I really would like to go to at some point. But yeah, again, this might be repetitive for our more loyal listeners, but really, June, I regret I never allowed myself to think of Korea as a potential long-term home. And so things like never investing in the language learning, we never really invested in home decor. It was like living off the cheapest furniture for 5 years. We never hung many photos up. Like we never made it want to feel like home because we never considered it could be home. And so therefore, as a self-fulfilling prophecy, it never became home. But I think in a different world, if we had done those things, for example, I found meaningful work, invested more long-term into the relationships that we had, right? I think Korea 5 years later could have felt very, very different. But I think because of these things, it, never really felt like home. June, I think the biggest thing for me, personally, that I did not expect was, I think Korea really cured again, I've called it like Asian male syndrome for me personally, but just this deep sense of like having low self-esteem. I don't think there's any reason I should have this, but I realized I really did. I always carried a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I felt like I was always like deeply bitter and angry about this in particular. And I think just being in Korea, where I feel accepted, feel in the majority, feel connected more to my ethnicity and culture and things like that. Much more than I expected. I feel like I've gotten over that a little bit. So, okay. June, just a couple more. So Korea also for me, because of the circumstances, I have not been working for the last 2.5 years now. And I think there was very few situations and circumstances in life where I could have done this being as like guilt-free as I've been. Because on the surface it's just like, what job am I going to get? What language? I can't speak the language. Like, I'm not going to be here long term. What's the point? And so because of that, I've had this very precious and special like 2.5 years where I can just be present with my kids, read books leisurely, like casual hobbies, exercise, just like resting, right? And recharging. And I think, you know, putting all that striving and caring about career and status and all these things, right? It's just, what a blessing for me. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for this time. And yeah, I just could never have imagined doing this in the US, right? There's no
excuse.
there's no excuse for me to just like take time off. But because of that, I think, I was really able to kind of, as you know, cheesy and corny as it sounds, like find myself, right? And I'm such a different person now than I was when I came here. And I never expected this. You know, this was nowhere on my radar. It was all about my kids, their future, connection to the motherland, language immersion, broadening their perspectives. But I never expected me to change so much. And yeah, I think that was such an unexpected gift for me personally. And it's like I hear this is common though for a lot of expats, not the rest part per se, but personal growth. And it's because when you leave your home country and all your friends and connections, all the expectations and societal understanding and everything, you're just like kind of stripped bare. And it's like a fresh start. And I think in that way, I really had a lot of time alone with myself. And I really got to discover, like, what are my interests? What are my joys?
Wow.
There's one thing I came to this very clear, recognition and, with ChatGPT, talking back and forth. But it was like, June, I realized my biggest fear right now as I'm, 42, preparing to move back to the US, is that I will never achieve my full potential creatively. And it's like,
why?
I think I never even had any expectations of myself creatively, right? I never had the time or space, and coming out from an engineering background and in my family growing up and all these things, right? It just felt like, well, that's my life, and it wasn't a bad life, to be clear, but I really have so many creative ambitions that I want to do. And I now feel like I actually have the ambition and actually drive to go and do some of them. I think in the US, it would have probably taken me retirement. I would have been like 65. And then I would have started thinking about maybe write a fiction book or, do a podcast or all these other things that I now want to do. And I'm just glad it happened earlier. And I think I really credit Korea and this situation I've been in for making that happen. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest things that you think changed for you?
I think freedom to be who I am on my own. Does that make sense? Like, it's funny because, everyone says Americans are so individualistic. But at least for me personally, I can recognize how I am much more individualistic than maybe your typical Korean. But I also felt like maybe because of my, the Korean influence, like I never got to express that or make decisions based on that, which in a sense makes it even more frustrating. Like I know some of the things I want to do, but I don't feel empowered to actually pursue them. So I don't know. It's like I haven't thought this through entirely, but yeah, definitely like I feel like I got to know myself and can now prioritize myself because of this time here. So yeah. June, there's two things I want to touch on very specifically. Like these come up in my life all the time and have really influenced how I think about things. And I want to credit them to you very directly. The first is the Buddhist principle. I always forget the name.
원효대사 해골물?
I'm going to call it Wanyo's skull, a very American accent. But the idea that like everything is from within, right? So exact same circumstances on the surface can have a totally different interpretation or impact based on where you are personally, like your mind state, your perspective, right? And yeah, it's just, this comes up for me so often and I recognize it now, right? It's like, if I'm in the mindset of like thinking negatively about Korea, everything that happens, it's like, oh, Korea sucks, it's because of Korea. But if I'm in a mind state where I'm like happy about Korea, I can like let it roll off my shoulders. Oh, it's not a Korea problem, it's an individual person problem. Or I can think of like all the good that comes with it, right, in a more balanced way. And yeah, I think that this is, I think, brought me a lot more balance in my life. And as you know, June, I'm a very turbulent, emotional person. So I think this is a bit of a steadying force. And then the second thing is the analogy you bring up all the time around the Chinese beer makers, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I realize now my understanding of Korean culture and how Korean Americans maybe generally think about Korean culture. It's like we're trying to hold on to this time capsule of what Korean culture was. Because we're not living in Korea, we can't grow and adapt along with Korea. And so for that reason, like we cling extra hard and can't, you know, modify or change or grow what we know of that culture. And I think just a recognition of that, I just see it play out all the time now, which is when you aren't connected directly to the source, like your main goal is to preserve it, not trying to grow or change it. And, you know, I think there is something beautiful about that preservation, but it's also limiting. And I think just recognizing, again, the good and bad of that, for me, has been a big game changer. It's, you know, changed how I thought about Korean Americans and Korean culture, Korean Koreans and Korean culture, right? I think I was so bold when I first moved here to say, man, Korean Americans are more Korean than Koreans, right? I literally thought and said those things, which now I realize is like, you know, very ignorant and wrong in a lot of ways. But also right in some ways. I think Korean Americans hold on to that more traditional, older Korean culture more closely. And so, anyway, those are two things that I think about a lot. So, oh, 진짜, how do I not be emotional? It's ridiculous. Even just thinking about. Oh, it's so embarrassing. I hate it so much. How do you be a T, June? Oh, okay. No, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. I need to do something. Hey, everyone. So, for our podcast only or people listening, we have changed venues.
And clothes.
Back to our original studio in June's apartment because our Airbnb checkout time was quickly approaching and we could not get it extended. However, June, walking over here, I had the thought, this is way more fitting. I'm actually really glad that happened.
Why?
It's not a lucky Bicky thing. I'm just really glad it happened because walking over here, you might not know because you're just, you know, sitting here waiting. But again, I know you're preparing and getting everything set up. I'm not saying that. But yeah, walking over here for the last time, definitely getting a little emotional and sentimental. And it just feels fitting that we end our last episode in the place where it all started. So yeah, I'm actually quite glad that worked out. And it is lucky Vicky. So
Lucky Vicky.
Well, I really don't know how people can do it if they're emotional, but they have to be professional. I don't understand. Yeah, just warning people. I'm in a very emotional state overall, of course. I'm an emotional person and this is a very emotional moment. However, yeah, just bear with me. But I really don't know how emotional people can be professional and keep it together. June, how should I be a T?
Just have to be born as a T.
There has to be a way. No, it's not. June, beyond the location, I have to be honest, I'm glad that we are having this final moment because I kind of hated the last hour and a half of recording.
You said it was too shallow, right?
Yeah, I don't, okay, maybe hate is a strong word, but that is how I feel. Like, and it's not that it was shallow, it's just that it was completely devoid of emotion. It's just like, it was, you know, I had prepared here and there over the last few weeks, trying to put together my thoughts and notes. And then I was kind of reading it, and so it just felt, very shallow, unemotional, scripted because it was. And quite frankly, like just such a far departure from I think literally at every other episode on our podcast. So yeah, for that reason too, I think it was good to maybe we'll still release it and include it, but good to take a reset and be able to have one last shot at ending this and yeah, landing the plane how in a way that I think is meaningful and worthy. So
I also thought it was it was a bit of surprise to me that you prepared it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought in some way I thought it was intentional.
Oh.
Because you didn't want to be too emotional for the final episode. But I think this is more fitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not intentional, I think. That's just what happens when I guess I have like some task I'm trying to get through. And yeah, is there a term in Korea called like work voice or like work person? Oh, definitely there is like a persona, right? Like work June.
직장인 모드.
Yeah. So work mode, is that a term though in Korean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely what it felt like putting that list together. And in the sense, yeah, no list could do my time here in Korea justice. So yeah, I don't know if we'll include it or not, but I for one would be happy I would be fine if we just kind of throw it out, although that'd be kind of a waste. June, this is not working. Okay, I need to take a pause. Yeah, was there anything else you wanted to get out or say before we were able to land the plane here?
I had some thoughts here and there that was scattered and wasn't really merging together. But then this 1 day buffer gave me an opportunity to actually write it down in a more comprehensive way. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, why don't you go?
Okay. This is what we're doing for this recording, right?
Yeah.
Final reflections. Okay.
That's it, yeah.
Final reflections. Over the last 2.5 years, across nearly 130 episodes of the Korean American podcast, we set out with a pretty ambitious goal to bridge the gap between cultures. We wanted to dig into the root cause of why we do things we do and hopefully carve out a little more empathy in the world. We've covered a lot of ground, some topics grand and sweeping, others just tiny everyday details. But looking back at the sheer volume of hours we've spent talking, I think the most meaningful takeaway for me hasn't been just decoding cultural phenomena. It's been my growth in my relationship with my co-host. What started as an exploration of a different culture quickly morphed into my own personal quest to simply understand another human being. In Korea, we have this concept of referring to people as vessels, 그릇. It describes a person's capacity to accommodate others. If someone is narrow-minded or quick to judge, we say their vessel is small, aka 그릇이 작다. If they are generous, open, and deeply understanding, their vessel is large, 그릇이 크다. Doing this podcast with Daniel has been a relentless process of constantly breaking my vessel to whiten it. And let me tell you, much like a chick furiously pecking its way out of an eggshell, it wasn't always a smooth or graceful process. It was frustrating at times. It involved constant, exhausting questioning. But nevertheless, as painful as growing pains can be, I sit here today as a noticeably bigger vessel than I was when we first hit record. We often talk about understanding others as if it's a warm, natural thing that just happens if you smile enough. I want to take this chance to say out loud, it isn't. It is not always easy. It takes massive effort, endurance, and above all, trust to finally get there. Coming from a highly homogeneous collective society, we Koreans sometimes struggle to grasp just how wildly different people's perceptions of the world can be. That blind spot can breed intolerance. not just towards foreign cultures, but right here among ourselves. But if there's a single defining truth I've internalized from all of our recordings, it's this. Everyone is trying their best in their respective circumstances. As this is officially the last episode of the podcast, I have to admit I'm dealing with a lot of profound disappointment, mainly because I will no longer be the guy that does a podcast. But in all seriousness, I want to thank my co-host, my former boss, my hyung, and most importantly, my true jeong-based friend, Daniel. Thank you for creating this opportunity and for being the catalyst that expanded my vessel. Finally, to our listeners all around the world, thank you for coming along this journey. Thank you for laughing with us, crying with us, and trying to understand the endless, complicated facets of the world alongside us. Your willingness to listen has made this world just a little bit more empathetic. If our 130 episodes manage to put even the slightest crack in your vessel, forcing to break and grow just a little bit wider, I consider our mission accomplished. Thank you.
Was that a bit of emotion there, June? That was beautiful. I think we need to end it. Yeah. Or definitely have that go last. I think we definitely have to have that go last. It's too good. Yeah. Very poetic. June, also, right before I was getting ready to leave to come over here, I've been in a very emotional, sentimental state, but I also say these kinds of things to my kids all the time. I'm like, guys, Daddy's sad that we're leaving Korea. I want you to know that. I'm also very excited that we're moving back to America. and it's normal to feel both.
Mm-mm.
And my third, she said, Dad, yeah, it's just like a party, except when it's your final party. And I think, we just had hosted a farewell party for her and her first grade classmates. But again, it was just such a perfect analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this episode being our final one, it's just like another episode, but it's our final episode. And so it's both incredibly happy and incredibly sad at the same time. So I think, June, with that said, I think, I just have a few final words I'll share. June, I know you think jeong may no longer be a thing in this country, but I can't. Sorry, once I read it, I think it'll be fast, but there has to be a way to... Oh, God. If I just read it 10 times in a row, then it will stop being emotional. June, I know you think jeong may no longer be a thing in this country, but I disagree. Let me take advantage of the ambiguity of the term to use it in my own way. I've received so much jeong during my time here. From the kind lady at the kiosk who makes my coffee with just a half pump of hazelnut syrup every day, since I asked her to customize it for me that first time, not realizing how gichana that was of me. Or gichana that would be for her. Or the owner of the Korean Chinese restaurant near our home, who shares her homemade chicken with us when we visit, and sends us off with extra lettuce to take home with us every time we visit, because we asked her one time to wrap up the leftovers so we could take it home to feed our turtle. Or the owner of the local burger store, whom after a very, very hard day alone with the kids, helped me to put on their coats put on their coats before leaving her store, and offered encouraging words she didn't know I needed. Or the Korean American neighbors we met with college-age children that moved in right next door to us, who take every opportunity to greet us warmly and treat us to meals when they're able to. I'm sure they don't know how much it means to us to have just one family like that living nearby. And from the neighborhood moms that always treat our kids like their own, or to the church group that welcomed us in, knowing that sooner than later, and actually very shortly, we'd be leaving. To our closest friends, you know who you are. Your presence in our life has been such a blessing. But in a sense, I don't feel much need to share that here, because I know you guys will be a Kakao message away. And of course, to our listeners, who may not realize that through your comments, messages, and even quiet support, it has meant so much to me over the years. I am always deeply moved and blown away by the insights you have shared and the supportive messages you have sent. And of course to you, June, who went from stranger to coworker to co-host, and now someone I consider a friend for life. I still remember one of our earliest conversations at work, where you helped me to break down a problem I was facing in a new way. The way you were able to quickly and simply dissect the issue, help me sort out my own thoughts, and gently guide me towards a solution was quite frankly amazing. And this is something you've continued to do for me and our audience through this podcast. When I listen to previous episodes, I frequently cringe so many times at the things I've said. I am not sure how you managed to not cringe, or maybe you did and you just kept it in. June, without you, there would be no Korean.American podcast. For the record, we are not the Korean-American podcast. Again, one Korean, one American, one topic weekly. You have been the patient, understanding, and insightful steady rock, and the engine that keeps this podcast moving forward, even when it wasn't easy. As you said many times, we live very different lives. And yet each week we come together to talk and hopefully arrive at a place of better and mutual understanding. And I think we have. In many ways, this podcast has been a reflection of myself and my time and experience here in Korea. It's been hard, but it's been so incredibly worth it. I leave Korea a totally different person than when I entered. I wanted to start this podcast because I could feel my perspective changing, and I wanted to share that with the world. To that, I can safely say mission accomplished. I moved to Korea with the intention of helping my children feel a connection to their motherland that I never did, and to be proud of their Korean identity moving forward. Only time will tell, and it's still too early to know. But I can confidently say we've grown closer as a family, made incredible memories, and I'm so proud of who my kids are becoming, and in fact who they already are. This goes not only to my kids, but to my wife. This season has challenged us, but we're emerging stronger for it, and I love you. Korea today has over 2.7 million foreigners, a number I only expect to keep on going up. But it isn't just Korea that's changing. America may be known as the great melting pot, but I think it's inevitable that the entire world will become more integrated and less homogenous moving forward. For the people moving here, be open and be humble. Things may seem wrong to you, but please don't be so quick to judge. Korea is not perfect. No country is. But it is full of imperfect people just trying their best.
just like everywhere else. Rather than label something as right or wrong, I've learned it's best to simply see things as different. And I think if you try to seek out what that difference is, you will not only more deeply learn and appreciate the Korean culture, but also your own. I know this has been my experience. And even though this podcast may be ending, I know my own personal journey of trying to better understand myself and others will never end. And that is my hope for our listeners too. Thank you. Oh, okay. June, I think I shared this with you. You know, some of these people I mentioned, I also want to write them just a handwritten letter. Give them some talk. I heard talk might be a good, neutral, but meaningful gift.
Talk.
Talk.
Usually it's a hello
It's
gift.
a hello gift,
Yeah.
not a
But
farewell gift. The Korean, maybe they're more Korean American than I thought. People I was assessing with never mentioned that. But yeah, I'll just stick with maybe a nice talk. But anyway, I was trying to write a quick note to them, and then I was translating it, and you know, I end my letters like best, comma Daniel, and then Google Translator or whatever said like 최고의 Daniel, which means I think it's like Daniel is the best.
yeah. The best Daniel.
The best Daniel. But I came to realize I don't think Koreans have an outro greeting. Like best, thanks,
감사합니다.
bye, love, right? So how do Koreans end letters? They just do dash, right?
Usually 감사합니다.
Oh.
Then 다니엘 올림.
Oh, okay. So we can say that.
드림. 드림.
What's 드림? The plural of 우림?
드림, like to give. Dream.
Okay. Should we try that then? All right.
감사합니다.
Korean American podcast 드림. Too cheesy, I don't.